Hi there, boys and girls. This week in reading and writing, we're going to work with fairy tales, traditional tales, and fractured fairy tales. And one of the skills that we're going to work on in reading is character traits. So when you think about character traits, you think about how the character looks and then how it acts or feels. So I have this little chart here that talks a little bit and shows a little bit about the two different ways to think about a character. So when you were little, like in kindergarten and first grade, you might have described a character about what they look like on the outside. So it's saying here some things that you look at for character on the outside. You could say that they were a girl, that they were pretty, that they were short, that they had on a pink dress. And those are ways to describe a character. But when we're in second grade, we try to think about how the character is on the inside. For instance, it says, look at the character on the inside. What we learn about a character based on what the character says, does, thinks, and feels. So some of those types of words could be brave, smart, caring, honest. And I have another chart here too, and you'll have these in your Google Classroom activity today that also describes a whole list of character traits. So a character could be serious. The person could be acting selfish. They could be doing something dangerous in the story. They could be doing something that shows that they're bossy. So we're going to try to think about today with our work examples of the way that character acts and then what they're doing in the book. That's what we call the text evidence. So not only are you going to have to list out the trait, you're going to have to give the example from the story to show, like if you pick mean, you would say on this page, the character did this to show that they were mean, whatever the example is. So now we're going to read this story. It's not a fairy tale, and I don't have every book that I have in my classroom here at home, but I have this book called After the Fall. I don't know if any of you know it. It's about Humpty Dumpty, but it's not a fairy tale. But it's kind of like a fairy tale character. So as I'm reading, I'm going to read the book straight through, and then we're going to talk about ways that we could describe Humpty Dumpty, and then the trait and the evidence. So here we go. After the Fall by Dan Santat. I like to take the cover off of the book just because I don't want it flopping around while I'm reading. So here we go. After the Fall, how Humpty Dumpty got back up again. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This is my favorite spot high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being close to the birds. Then, one day, I fell. I'm sort of famous for that. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand, but it was just an accident. But it changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together. Well, most of me. There were still some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. I don't know about you, but I love cereal too. See, he was afraid to go up on that ladder. He must like a box of cereal that's on the top shelf. I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing the ladder again. I really missed the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day an idea flew by. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but day after day, I kept trying and trying. Until I got it just right. My plane was perfect and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away again. But then I thought about all the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I had missed. I decided I was gonna climb the wall again. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt, but I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept climbing, one step at a time. Until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg who got back up. Oh no. And learned how to fly. Oh boy. The end. Okay, so Lisa got up there one last time. I already put my little chart together of the character who we're going to talk about is Humpty Dumpty, and then all the ways to describe him. So here's my chart right here, and I just put Post-it so you could probably see it a little bit better instead of white paper. So I wrote Humpty Dumpty in the middle, and then on the pale yellow are the ways that you probably would have described the character in the past, what it looks like on the outside. So I put egg, oval shape, and smooth. And that is a little bit how you would describe an egg. But then the purple Post-its are the more important traits. So I wrote sad, scared, determined, brave, and nervous. And those are some really great words to describe Humpty Dumpty as a character. So based on those feelings, he did certain things. So the first example, I'm only going to go over two. So when you're doing your activity today, you're going to have a chart that's similar to this. So I wrote the character is Humpty Dumpty. And then I'm going to write the trait in the example or the evidence from the text. So the first trait that I'm going to pick is determined because I really like that word. He did not give up. And so I'm going to write determined for the trait. And my text evidence is going to be he kept trying to make that paper airplane. It took a lot of hard work. He kept messing it up and then he wouldn't give up. So he's a determined character because he didn't give up when he was making his plane. Oh, it's a lot to write. I'm trying to go quick. And here it is. I just wrote it down quick. He's determined, and the evidence of that is when he didn't give up when he was making his paper airplane. And then the other trait I'm going to write is terrified, and that's a really good word, good second grade word. And he was terrified when he was climbing that ladder for the to get to the top of the wall again. So the example of terrified is when he was slowly climbing the ladder again. And here we are. So Humpty Dumpty was terrified, and the evidence is when he was slowly climbing that ladder back up to the top of the wall. So today, now it's your turn for Google Classroom. You're going to have to pick character traits, the example, and give the evidence. See you next time.